We met at a church dance in, I believe it was 1961. And I saw Renee and asked her to dance, and that was the first time I had seen her, and I don't know if she had ever seen me before, but the first time we introduced each other to each other.
That's right. Well, we met because I was recruiting single people to do a dating show. And I wasn't out on the field that day, I was in the office. Somebody else was out that day, came back to the office and said, oh my goodness, I met this guy. He doesn't want to go on the dating show, but you would love him, but I'm gonna call him anyways.
I had just graduated from high school, and he asked me where I was gonna go to college, and I told him. And that stuck in my mind because when we met again, at least, I guess a year later, he asked me if I liked it where I had gone to college. And I thought, wow, he remembered what I had told him.
And she puts him on hold and has him talk to me, and I've never in my life ever, with work, ever given my home phone number to anybody. For some reason...
I find that hard to believe, actually, because she gave it up pretty easy.
I did, because I love talking to you, because he was, he had the accent, and we just clicked like that.
I went away to college, and then I came back. I decided I wanted to stay at home. And we saw each other again at a convention at the Waldorf Astoria.
A church convention. And it was about 2 or 3 in the morning, and I was looking for a party to go to. And we bumped into each other, and I said, come on, let's go. And she said, no, I want to go change. And I waited for her to change, and then left and went to a party. And that's when we started to get to know one another. And our dating began from that experience.
And he says, you know what, I don't want to go on this stupid dating show, I want to meet you. And we had no idea what the other one looked like. And I said, okay, so we started talking, we talked all week on the phone. We literally fell in love on the phone. We had no idea what the other person looked like. And we ended up being each other's type, exactly.
I was crossing my fingers for an entire week.
I was too. I was hoping that he was going to look like he looked.
He was funny, he made me laugh all the time, and I liked that. And we enjoyed each other's company. We saw each other again the next day, I think. It just developed.
It was not love at first sight, it was like at first sight. And certainly the similarities in our backgrounds and the same friends and the same religion and the same ethnicity added to it and gave us a reason to continue seeing one another.
So then we decided to meet instead of him coming out here because he was living a little further away. I knew I had friends that lived nearby, so I figured I would just drive down there. If worst came to worst and it didn't work out in person, I could always go to my friend's house. So I pull up, I was so scared I went to the wrong driveway, I was shaking. I pull up, I get out of my car, and this guy just walks up to me and kisses me.
I think it was more of a gradual thing in the beginning, but after a while, I realized that I really didn't want to be with anybody else. I was dating other people when I first met him, and after a while, I thought, well, I really don't want to date anybody else. I just would rather be with him.
And he says, you're Nikki, right? Because if you're not, I'm going to feel really stupid right about now. And I was, and we talked, and he said the nicest thing. He said, it's not often that you can meet a dream girl, personality-wise. He says, I can't believe I met my dream girl on the phone, and then she turned out to look like my dream girl in person.
And I agree with Renee. It was a gradual thing. It wasn't an immediate awareness, but rather a gradual getting to know each other, or me getting to know Renee and her qualities, and her likes and dislikes, and finding that many of her likes were my likes, and the things that she enjoyed doing, I enjoyed doing.
You told me you loved me that night too.
Yeah, I told her I loved her that night. And she told me she loved me too.
When we were apart, I didn't want to be apart. I wanted to be with her. And every time we would have a fight and break up and we're going our separate ways and that's it, adios, I would feel a void in my life and an emptiness. And that allowed me to realize that this was the one that I wanted to be with. This was the girl for me.
Love, arguably the most emotionally charged four-letter word in the English language, and yet a term that is notoriously difficult to define.
There is a definition of love. I mean, love is a feeling. It's a sense that kind of flows from the top of your head down to your toes. I think it's different for everyone. And sometimes when someone says, I love you, it may be, I want to capture you, I want to take care of you, I want you to do everything I want you to do. Or it can be freedom. It can be helping you to become all that you are and developing a trust and caring.
The way I define love, really, is a deep affection and caring for another person. It's an investment in another person's well-being and a stake in the outcome. We care about another person and what happens in their lives. I think that's certainly more than any kind of sexual attraction or momentary thing. And that's, I see love as something deeper like that.
I think to really feel in love, and I've been married for 40 years, there's a trust, there's a continual trust, there's a deepening of love, and it keeps growing.
Love, in one form or another, is an emotion that is at the heart of many close interpersonal relationships, including those of an intimate nature. Prior to the 20th century, however, a couple's life together often had little to do with what most people today consider to be love.
Doing your duty, living with your family, and getting along, but that didn't mean that you felt particularly close to your partner. The idea that, you're supposed to be able to communicate, that comes in much later. We've come to a time now where, at least among people with more education, I think it's getting very widespread. One of the most meaningful things in their whole life that they want, that they long for, is this intimate partnership. This person they're going to meet, who they're going to have this really meaningful relationship with, and they're going to have great sex with, and they're going to really understand each other. It's like that's what is going to give their life meaning and make it wonderful. And that's a new idea. New in the sense not many people had it in early 20th century and certainly not in the 19th century. Even right now, I think there's a lot of people that don't have that. I think it's extremely difficult to do, to actually have a long-term relationship like that where you can actually be open, where you know yourself well enough and you can manage your own terrors and fears well enough to do that. But more and more people, that's what they're trying to do.
With
Psychologists and others who make it their business to study and analyze human behavior sometimes construct elaborate theories to explain slippery concepts like love.
One I call the triangular theory. And according to the triangular theory of love, there are three components of love. Intimacy, which is your closeness to someone, your connection with the person, your mutual trust, your respect. It's like all the ingredients of a good friendship. Passion, which is essentially how hot the relationship is, how much you feel like you need the person, you long for the person. When you're not with them, you're just thinking about them all the time. It's almost like an addiction. And for some people, it is an addiction. And the third component is commitment, which is the extent to which you've cognitively decided you're in this for keeps. You're really committed to, involved, and you will stay in that relationship regardless of what happens.
And it's not easy work, it's hard work. And it's probably like politics. It's compromise and conciliation. It's not having to have it your way 100% of the time or 70% of the time. It's give and take. It's nurturing. It's embracing. It's telling each other, I love you, as many times as you can, every day, every night.
And it doesn't seem like 40 years. It's like we got married 10 years ago.
Yesterday.
That's how I feel.
Yesterday. And when I say work, I don't mean work in the sense of, oh, drudge, tough, I don't look forward to it. I mean not taking it for granted. Not taking Renee for granted.
According to Sternberg's triangular theory of love, the more components of love a couple shares, the better their relationship is likely to be.
If you just have intimacy, it's liking. If you just have passion, it's infatuation. If you just have commitment, it's what I call empty love. If you have all three, intimacy, passion, and commitment, it's consummate or complete love. Now, the idea of the triangles, by the way, is that the more my triangle matches that of my partner, the happier we'll be in our relationship. So there are two ingredients for happiness. One is, in general, more intimacy, more passion, and more commitment are associated with happiness. And secondly, match in triangles is associated with happiness. So if I emphasize, say, intimacy and my partner emphasizes passion, that's not good. If we both really care about intimacy or we both care about passion, that's good.
While the earliest stage of a love relationship is not necessarily the most stable or fulfilling, it is often the most exhilarating.
When we fall in love, there is a lot of biochemistry. It is an incredible high, and it's fascinating. In the last few years, we've learned a lot more about what actually happens to the body when you're falling in love.
Romantic love is like being on a roller coaster. You're at the top, and you're going down, and the excitement, and the thrill of it is just incredible. And there is that dynamic that connects people with romantic love. And it's wonderful. It's just feels so good. And some of it is sexual. Some of it is kind of just having that sexual, passionate feeling towards the one that you love.
Because everything just kind of clicked.
Yeah,
everything just kind of fell into place.
It did. I mean, when we first kissed each other, it was instantly like I melted the first time he kissed me.
Hollywood says that if you've got the chemistry, you've got almost everything. But, over time, chemistry will let you down a lot if you don't have the underlying compatibility underneath it. So I say, chemistry is like a 747. It'll get you up to 35,000 feet pretty adequately. But if all these other compatible factors are like the fuel in the 747. And if you don't have any fuel in there, you're going to start sinking after a while from 35,000 feet.
While many relationships seem almost effortless in the early stages, making the transition from pure chemistry and romance to something deeper and longer lasting can be a challenge.
You have to keep surprise alive in your relationship. When you first meet someone, everything's a surprise. You like Woody Allen too? Wow, you shop at Ralph's Market too? Wow, everything's like, I didn't know that about you. It pulls you towards the other person. After a while, oh, that's what she does, that's what he does. It becomes the same, it becomes old stuff.
That often what couples end up doing is to not get into a discussion. They hold back parts of themselves. And so 5, 10 years down the road, there's not a whole lot of them honestly in the relationship because they're holding back. They're not talking about things to keep things peaceful. And then they kind of wonder why they end up in affairs or they're just kind of have fallen out of love. But they've been holding back parts of themselves to keep the peace.
One other thing, and that is friendship. If you nurture a friendship in a relationship, then it's not just the sexual passion that keeps it going. It's, I really like this person as well.
We traveled everywhere. We went to the Olympics. We went to wonderful, wonderful places because of his business. And I think that helped a lot. And he had his interests when he was home. He loves sports. He loves to watch sports. And so we just watched television separately. I watched what I wanted, and he watched what he wanted, and I respected that. And I think that helps. You have to understand each other's likes and dislikes.
You have to give each other space, their own space. And you can't try to inflict your likes on the other person and say, you must like this, and how dare you not. So we allowed each other that freedom. We'd play tennis together, and we enjoyed that. And neither one of us was good, and we enjoyed that. And, you know, winning wasn't that important. It was just doing that together that was important.
What I find with long-term love is that people have experienced the highs and the lows of a relationship. They've argued, they've resolved it, they've gone on trips, they can talk about the trips, they've had children often, and they can talk about the children. But long-term love, deep love, has to come out of, when I say trust, it's not just trusting that the other person is going to be monogamous or whatever your decision is about the relationship, but trusting that when you have a problem, they'll help you to discover more about yourself in the problem.
I've had illnesses. I've had cancer a couple of times, and Bruce has always been with me and helped me through it.
But, you know, those are things that, you know, are part of life. And Renee and I took very seriously the vows that we took back in 1966 for richer or poorer in sickness and in health. So, I mean, it wasn't even a thought of not doing what love suggested one do when one's partner was faced with the things that Renee was faced with.
Despite what are often the best of intentions, inevitably many couples are not able to do what Bruce and Renee Honig have done. Love for these couples turns out to be something transitory that fades away after a period of time. In many such cases, the primary obstacle to love is not so much the way partners feel about each other, but the way they feel about themselves as individuals.
I think a great part of the romantic love is being able to give and receive compliments and tokens of affection. If you don't believe you're worthy of those tokens of affection and compliments, then you won't be able to receive someone else's love. The other person will then feel rejected and hurt and withdraw. So that bond really isn't able to happen in that way if you don't love yourself. If you have such a deep hole inside yourself that you don't love yourself, you will never be filled. So you might start demanding more and more from the other person to fill that hole, and yet you will never have enough.
Sometimes, the biggest obstacles to love are very basic misconceptions about what a love relationship is supposed to be.
A misconception about love is that you always feel romantic towards your partner. You always want to be with them. You always want to share all your activities with them. It isn't true. It isn't true. I've had people come in and say, oh, I just wish I had a day without my wife or my husband, or I wish I could go away for the weekend. And my answer is, well, why can't you? Why can't you be apart? Why can't you even have separate interests and still love that person, be committed to that relationship?
I think the biggest misconception is that obsession and dependency are the same as love. Those are no fun. They kind of equal stalking or addiction more than the caring affection and the concern. They get in the way of actually having intimacy, of actually being close to another person. So it's more of a fantasy relationship that person ends up having rather than a real one.
For some couples whose love relationship is grounded more in fantasy than reality, the dynamic between partners sometimes resembles that of a parent and child. The result in nearly all such cases is disastrous. Once you start doing that, it's pretty much a habit, and it usually goes back to a relationship with a parent that wasn't fulfilling. And so the child ended up
you know, maybe if I do this, then the parent will love me, or if I do this, or if I follow them around or make them feel like they're a great person. But then again, the child can never do anything that will make the parent love them more. But they get stuck in that and treat their lovers in the future as if they are their parent.
It makes me feel good.
Treating a lover like one's parent is certainly one way to undermine a love relationship, but there are others.
I think one of the main ones is objectifying another person, putting that person either so far high on a pedestal or just as an object that's to be used for their gratification. It devalues that person. And if you are not valuing another person, there's no way love can actually exist there.
The reasons for love to stop between people vary. Number one is not taking time to continue to nurture the relationship. Become too complacent. You do too many things separately. You know, you don't think of the other person, you don't bring them into your life. Loving, long-term relationships need, if not constant, then certainly powerful connection.
How long are you going to keep doing When people start leading parallel lives, when husbands and wives become more like roommates or ships passing in the night, there's no more love there, really, because the connection is gone. The looking forward to seeing each other is gone. Pretty soon there's no intimacy involved. There's no caring involved either. They just might as well be people living in different places altogether.
When you don't take time to continue to nurture the relationship, it can dwindle. When one person, I worked with a couple where the man was so jealous, he didn't want his wife to go out. He didn't want her to experience anything outside of the relationship. He was threatened. At first, it might have felt like he really cared about her because he wanted to be with her all of the time. But as she grew and as time went by, she wanted to be out with her girlfriends or wanted to experience something different away from him, and he was threatened. She's the one that left.
Controlling behavior is really oftentimes the downfall of love. And that's because a person cannot be free to be spontaneously themselves in the relationship. And I think in the beginning of romance is the spontaneity and the fun of it is really what makes it love in so many ways, what makes us attracted to each other. So controlling can take many different abusive forms. It can take the form of physical violence, emotional abuse, basically anything that holds that person on a string.
Another problem that might come up is acting out on impulses. So let's see, one of the couple is depressed or bored with their lives or something, and someone looking very attractive is in their lives. And they think the way out of the depression or the boredom is maybe to act on that. Generally see is that when someone acts out in that way, it causes chaos, it may end the relationship. Everyone's going to be attracted to other people. It's normal. The difference is making the choice. How valued is your primary relationship? Is it worth risking?
Despite the multitude of pitfalls that can derail a relationship, there are things a couple can do to help their love endure.
I think to prevent the divergence, a person needs to not take their lover for granted. And so it's a matter of not giving up on the small tokens of affection, whether verbally or otherwise, whatever is meaningful in the relationship to those people, to have moments of checking in with that person throughout the day. Again, just keeping the involvement going. It's when people begin to slack off and just assume the other person will always be there that the love can be lost.
I recommend couples create a ritual of some kind where they go out to dinner once a week, a date night once a week, where they connect, and in that time and space is the opportunity to bring up difficulties that they're having and learn to resolve them in a non-combative, loving way.
So you get to plan a date, what do you want to do? And your mate gets to plan a date, what do they want to do? Going back to the honeymoon phase, when that's all you could think about was, oh, I can't wait, to share skiing with them or going for a walk through my favorite park with them. We have to go back to those honeymoon pieces and bring them into our lives to have long-term relationships.
With Nick, it was just, he makes me laugh all the time. He always makes me laugh. So even when I'm mad at him, he makes me laugh. And that is so important. And I see that even with my own family. I always see that with my grandparents even when times were tough, they always knew how to make each other laugh. And that's what kept them together.
And so when the children left, and we were alone for a little while in the very beginning, all three were gone, and it was so
wonderful.
nice. We enjoyed it. We went out to dinner all the time. We left to see plays and movies and things. Because we do have a little bit more freedom than we did, we can travel a little bit more. That's something that when you do that together is wonderful.
This June, we're going to Alaska.
Definitely, I want to travel. My goal is to see my grandchildren grow up, that we will have more years together. I guess that's it.
Our Families Ourselves is an 18-part series about marriages and families. For information on this program and accompanying materials, call 1-800-576-2988 or visit us online at www.intelecom.org.